All right, good morning and welcome everybody. This is your host of the day, Kate Archibald, and really excited to be jamming with some really cool people today. We got with us the amazing one and only Dr. Dan Kellums. Dan, how you doing today?
Good. Doing great.
Right. So
I
Reagan's not going to be joining us today. He's next 2 weeks. He's jamming in the Park City office. So I'm excited. We get a little piece of Dan this morning, and Dan is one sweet savory son of a gun. So
love
so
it. That's dirty to me.
so we're gonna be talking about some really interesting things, and I know. So for those of you that don't know about Dan, so Dan is like just phenomenally intelligent. Like you have conversations with this guy, and it kind of blows my mind. Um, so really, really sharp. He also has an endocrinology course that he's put together that we have through our Go Wellness University, and so I'll be posting some details about that and how you could get involved if that's a route you want to go. But if you're wanting to be an expert in anything hormone related, anything, just that internal piece. I know Dan's amazing when it comes to fertility, but anything endocrinology related, you got to grab this course because it will. It's like the price point on it is super low and affordable. So take a look at it, hop into that because it will, the content in that so well organized, so well put together because that's Dan. He's just a well organized, well put together son of a gun. So Dan, how you doing?
I'm good. I wish we were married. You talk so highly of. My wife talked that way about me. I'd be happy. It'd be great. Uh, I'm good, man. I'm happy to be here today. Uh,
Nice.
Always down to jam. So this is a good opportunity. Uh,
Yeah. So I know you referenced, so when we talked about different topics, we threw out like EBV was one of the things that I remember you said, hey, I got some really cool content I can talk about
yeah.
there. But where do you want to start with this? I
Well,
let
you
you
know,
kind of drive from here.
yeah, I think kind of touch upon two really hairy subjects, both COVID and autoimmunity. Um, One of the things that I've heard brought up and had a lady yesterday asking about, you know, getting her an exemption for her, uh, the mandate on the vaccine based on her autoimmunity. But there's no like, you have to be kind of careful with that right now. They are checking, they're going after people who are writing too many exemptions. But there's, right now we don't have enough uh, like peer-reviewed, literature to back that up. But we are seeing, you're gonna naturally see an increase in some of these other antibodies and things going on in the body when you have a substantial infection. Whether it's, even if it's just highly virulent and not causing an illness with you, or if it is causing an illness with you. And then you got the whole piece with the autoimmune component. I mean, so anything that challenges your immune system, like really heavily, you get an increase in your circulating antibodies. Your memory cells just go crazy, and then your white blood cells get out there and they start going after all these targets. So we get a flare up. But from a chronic illness perspective and an autoimmune perspective, Epstein-Barr is crazy. Like 90% of the world has had mono or has it in their body, right? I mean, like everybody. It's like the old school herpes, right? It's like everybody's got it. So, I mean, everybody's gonna have it. So we need to talk about it because it causes a lot of problems. I mean, if you're looking at hormones, if you're looking at immune system, you're looking at regenerative therapy. I mean, I don't even know what everybody's specialized in. So, like the participants that we have, what do you like to specialize in? Because this is going to have some overlap, regardless of what you're treating. you need the immune system. And that's what's fascinating about Epstein-Barr. And so I don't even want to talk about the reactivated virus, because this is where most of my research is concentrated in. Is, everybody, all the research are looking at like the problems that the reactivated Epstein-Barr causes. And you don't even need the reactivated virus. And that's what's crazy. So the reactivated virus, it's like getting, you're having this kind of systemic infection again that's active, and it comes out of its latency, and it releases so many proteins and virulent factors. But when it's in the latent form, um, and getting clarity on this research, it's a little difficult. But it's crazy because of what it does. Um, you know, with COVID, people worried about the vaccine like altering DNA. Um, but Epstein-Barr actually does alter DNA, and that's one of the crazy things is when it's in its latent form, it fuses its own viral RNA to the DNA in our B cells, which make all of our antibodies. That's actually where it anchors itself into the DNA, and it alters cellular replication. It causes all kinds of serious issues. So the history on it is crazy because there's the doctor who was really studying the Epstein, was Dr. Epstein. Um, he was asked to look at these tumor cells, and they found this lymphoma where the Epstein-Barr was actually growing. And the doctor who had him looking at that was Burkitt's. So Burkitt's lymphoma is driven by chronic Epstein-Barr in the latent form. And so, and I've seen articles where they're like, well, it's like the alternative thing, Cade, where they're like, everybody has yeast and everybody has Epstein-Barr. And, a lot of times people actually have that stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I'll just look for the antibody that shows that the person has had it and had a strong antibody response. And that's the viral capsid IgG antibody, right? And I realized,
What markers is that? So, because I know we've in Avexia we have like I think it's a EBV viral profile.
yeah, there's a couple you can look at, see if it's reactivated. But the one that you want to see that you had a long-term response to, and this is that it's in there longer, and you're going to get numbers that are really high. And depending on how severe it was when the person had it, those antibodies drop down a little bit, but they can stay elevated for the rest of their life. But you want to know this, because mine always drops the panelist first. So I'm like,
Mine does too. I have to like
I always forget.
really instinctively think about it. So I got your back there.
For months I've been sending messages to everybody. It's only gone to the panelists. So that lets us know that it's there. And here's what's crazy is it does, like I said, it doesn't, and I'm going to pull up a lot of research about the latency form, because it produces about 9 proteins that disrupt our body. And it causes a lot of molecular mimicry. And so I'll break that down as well too. But just the mere presence of elevated the viral capsid IgG antibody has been shown to correspond with, now this is going to be more correlation, not necessarily causation. Higher, statistically, the higher that a person has of these viral capsid antibodies, the more disrupted all their neurotransmitters are. And that disruption causes a lot of problems, right? So what you'll see is acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin get disrupted. And so the higher those are, the higher likelihood a person is going to have chronic fatigue, paresthesia, so some issues with their nervous system, myalgia, so muscle pain, arthralgia, so arthritic pain, cephalgia, so headaches. So there's a correlation. There was a pretty good research article just talking about that in general. It's like, okay, just with these being up, you have a higher likelihood of increased pain sensitivity and chronic fatigue. So could it be that link that's like that that in between gray state of what we would call fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, right? So it's just like depletion. And that could be the peace. So that's crazy there. So knowing that someone has that, if they have pain, they have fatigue, they have weird symptoms, this could be chronically going on. And it doesn't have to be reactivated. Everybody wants to test to see if it's reactivated. And what I'm trying to drive home here is it causes problems in its latency. And that's a big issue, right? That's the big problem. And it's constantly overlooked. So what it does, and one of the big problems um, that it drives, and what I'll do, I can screen share, right? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, you know, the in the latency, and I have a ton of research on the latency. I'm just gonna
And so for the VCA IgG antibody, you're saying the higher the number, like the
yeah,
more likely there is
neurotransmitter.
transmitter problems.
Yeah, and that
So what is like what's the normal range? I've never heard of the VCA IgG antibody. I've heard of
the
IgG
number.
antibody.
Well, you don't want it over. I mean, like positive is 21.9, but like on our labs, you'll find people having hundreds, 200s. And you have some people that it just says greater than 600. So their body's still making a lot, putting a lot of resource to these circulating antibodies. They shouldn't like constantly be that high. When the immune system's been triggered, you'll see those typically elevate if it's been really severe, and the memory B cells start pumping out these antibodies, right? So it can be a real problem. So the here's the research specifically on just this piece, just the antiviral antibodies. And this goes back to 2015, but you see here that it really had to do with the higher the IgG concentrations correlated with pain intensity and different associated symptoms. And this is a really good article, and they cite a lot of good stuff. Some
So so could you tie this back to, and obviously you don't want to place a blanket of, it's all EBV, but because
oh
we don't want to fall into that. But fibromyalgia, that sounds like a lot of symptoms could be
yeah.
caused there. So if you have someone coming in with fibromyalgia, you want to look at this track.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, if you have somebody with autoimmunity, if you have somebody has situations that nobody can figure out, if they're really suffering with some really hard to figure out conditions, of course you can run a panel on all of the latent viruses. We call those stealth pathogens. It's just like what happens is these things add up. And if you have, and our typical go-to is, if you have somebody that has these high Epstein-Barr aspects, they're having weird symptoms. And those are the things you look for. So, just to back up and say, okay, are they having some systemic inflammatory response or an autoimmune or an autoinflammatory process? There's a couple of key things that you'd say, okay, well, what are some indicators that a person is having um, these issues, right? And it's going to be the people where their symptoms are weird. They've had multiple diagnoses. They've tried a lot of different therapies and nothing seems to work. And they have a lot of sensitivities. Those are going to be that class of people, right? Um, that, things, sometimes you'll see people where sometimes things work for a little bit and then later on they no longer work, right? And that's going to be the people that you're going to see where these types of things are happening. So you go for those people when you see those things I just mentioned, like multiple diagnoses, a lot of different. You have people that bring in like 25 supplements. They're on a lot of medications. Nothing seems to be quite working. They have odd symptom patterns, and they have hypersensitivities to a lot of different things. Maybe certain food proteins or different things like that. That's going to be, those oddities. Those are the people. That's where you want to kind of dig in, and with and we were doing a lot of the regenerative therapy, and we still are with the ozone and PRP. You got to be careful with these people because um, they got some weird shit in their blood, and the last thing you want to do is take it out and put it back in a concentrated area that's already in, right. And so you have to be careful. So you have these people that are having odd symptoms, right? And they're just like baffling you, and you're like, oh, this one's a ticking time bomb. Your first thing you want to do is make sure you're doing incredible labs, because the your first rule is don't make them worse.
Hey everybody, Reagan Archibald here with Go Wellness. And if you liked this episode, if it actually helped inspire you to be a better practitioner, help more people, establish a much better foundation for your business, then I'm going to ask a favor of you. And that favor is for you to share this with somebody you care about and love in the healthcare field. I don't mind if it's an acupuncturist, a functional medicine practitioner of any sorts, a naturopathic doctor, a medical doctor, any type of endocrinologist or specialist. We need to get this community strong, and we can't do it without your help. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work you're putting in and day out. I know it can be a grind, especially with some of the chronic cases that you're treating, but this show will help transform the way that you think, help transform the way you practice, and change the lives of thousands. Thank you for being part of our community.